Welcome back to Power Lunch, everybody. Well, this is National Distracted Drivers Month. Just as a major new tech product is about to come out, the Apple Watch. Well, with me now is Deborah Hersman, former NTSB chairman and now president and CEO of the National Safety Council. Also joining us is Phil LeBeau. Deborah, thank you so much for joining us today. How worried are you about this new Apple Watch and how much it could distract drivers?
You know, we have so many things that distract us, and this is just yet another thing to pile on. We have seen some studies coming out from the UK that show that watches like this are even more distracting than looking at your device.
Why? Because it's buzzing on your arm, it's doing all kinds of things. So even if you take your eyes just for a couple of seconds off the road to look down at your buzzing device, is that enough to cause an accident?
Absolutely. It just takes a few seconds to cause an accident. But when we're thinking about these watches, people respond when someone taps you on the shoulder, and when your wrist is buzzing, you're going to be tempted to look at it. And they've demonstrated that drivers are actually looking down more as far as time, 2.5 seconds rather than less than 2 seconds. And so these things are really very distracting.
Well, when you talk to automakers, though, about this kind of concern, what do they say to you?
You know, we have distractions as far as the nomadic devices that are being brought into cars, whether it's the handheld, the tablets, the smartwatches. I think there's no end. When we look at Google Glass, there's so many things that you can bring into a car. But what automakers are putting into cars with the infotainment systems, and some of these screens are so interactive and big, we have a lot of challenges. And trying to get a driver to focus on the task of driving is getting harder and harder.
I believe it is. Phil, come in on the conversation.
You know, Mandy, I had a chance, about a year and a half ago to actually a course where they put you in a car and they measured your response time while you were, in this case, using a BlackBerry. It's very obvious, anybody who has done a course like this, you make huge mistakes, and if I was in real traffic, I would have easily rear-ended another car or hit a pole, something of that nature. Deborah, I'm curious from your perspective, is there any possibility of going to a company like Apple and saying, look, I understand what you're doing in terms of giving people convenience with this technology here, but you're really pushing it in terms of making it easier for people to be distracted while they're driving. Have you approached Apple, or is that one of those where you can't really blame the technology company?
You know, I think it's really important for not just the technology companies, but consumers to be aware of these distractions. It's interesting. I remember opening up my new iPhone, and I've even opened up things like GPSs. And they actually, in that very fine print, in that big document that you open when you get your new phone, that nobody reads, it really does caution you not to use it while you're driving. And so I think that is
crazy, because that's what it's for.
That's the, you know, yeah, that's the challenge, is we end up in a situation where we're encouraging people, especially with cars, where we're encouraging people to go hands-free.
Right.
We're saying, oh, go hands-free, but hands-free is not safer. It's not your hand that's distracted, it's your brain. And so if it was just about handheld, we would have said no stick shifts a long time ago.
So if you could just put on your regulator cap for 2 seconds, if you could make one change to the regulators, something that the automakers should do to try and make us safer in this connected world, particularly with something like an Apple Watch or any other kind of smartwatch, what would you do?
It would be to really isolate that driver from the other passengers in the car to make sure that they are not distracted, either by in-vehicle or nomadic devices.
Right. Phil, would you say the same thing, or is there something else that you think should be done?
Well, I agree with what Deborah's saying, but Deborah, it begs the follow-up question. Would you believe that there should be technology that blocks, if you're in the driver's seat, that blocks you from receiving a phone call, a text, whatever it might be? In other words, makes it almost impossible for your technology to communicate with you when you're in the driver's seat.
You know, I think the blocking technology has a lot of difficulties associated with it, but we could certainly do something. We have airplane mode on our phones right now. What if we had car mode and we knew that we were in our cars? We see 35,000 fatalities on our roadways every year, and we estimate about a quarter of those are as a result of people being distracted on their electronic devices. We've got to make sure that we do a better job when it comes to preventing crashes on our roadways.
You know, Phil, I think blocking is not necessarily a bad idea. Deborah, it's great to talk to you. Thank you very much for your expertise on the show. Thank you, Phil, as well. Brian, back over to you.
Mandy, very quickly before the tease, two things. Number one, say hello to Deborah Hersman, classmate of mine at Virginia Tech, same major, political science. Number two, there already does exist a technology to get rid of texting and driving. You know what it is, Mandy?
Walking.
Stick shift. Stick shift. Make every car go back. No, seriously, go back to manual transmissions on every single car. You know what? Most people I know, except for that cute little five-legged lamb Sue showed us earlier, don't have extra digits.
He was the cutest, and all I'm thinking of is extra lamb chops as well. That little extra leg is a lot more chops.
No, gross. Tell Deborah to give us a go Hokies. All right, coming up after the break, more from the IHS Energy Conference and the BP CEO exclusively.